The road promised escape, but some destinations should never be found. The stories you're about to hear are filled with unsettling encounters, mysterious detours, and terrifying twists on familiar highways. They are fictional but inspired by real fears. Listener discretion is strongly advised, especially if you're planning a road trip anytime soon. Story 1. My name's Theo. This happened years ago, but I've only ever told it once before. Just once. I needed to confirm that I wasn't losing my mind, that I wasn't the only one who remembered it exactly the way I did. There were 4 of us, just 4 friends trying to escape for a long spring break weekend. Nothing fancy or wild, just a brief reprieve from the quiet disasters that had been consuming our lives back home. It was meant to be a clean, drama-free reset. Molly had just walked away from a 6-year relationship that had slowly eroded her from the inside out. Jay had recently failed the bar exam by a single point and hadn't yet worked up the courage to tell his parents. I'd quit med school a few weeks earlier, mentally and emotionally fried to the bone. And Harren? He never said much about his situation, but he wore this haunted, exhausted look, like he'd been holding his breath for months and didn't remember how to let it out. The trip was Jay's idea. Drive from Salt Lake City to a low-key hot springs resort tucked into the Colorado wilderness. No itinerary, no pressure, just us, the road, and the open sky. We rented an SUV that was in decent shape, packed it with snacks, backpacks, and one duffel stuffed with essentials. Jay immediately called the driver's seat and never once offered to rotate. That was just Jay. Take charge. Steer forward, no questions asked. Molly took shotgun. She always did. That left Harren and me crammed in the back, trading dry commentary and letting the long miles dissolve into a strange, hypnotic silence. Roughly 3 hours into the drive, somewhere past the worn cliffs of Price Canyon, Jay casually mentioned something about a faster route. I remember it clearly because no one saw him touch the GPS. One moment we were gliding along the highway, and the next, the center console lit up with a prompt. Fastest route available, save 13 minutes. Jay didn't consult us. He just tapped accept like it was nothing. No one objected. We were all lulled into that road trip trance where time bends and warps, where nothing feels real, and the horizon seems to stretch forever. The new route veered off without warning, easing us into dense forest with an unsettling lack of transition. One moment, wide open plains. The next, thick woods swallowing the road whole. There were no road signs, no buildings, no power lines, just trees, packed tightly together, pressing in close enough to block out the sky. The air grew quieter, unnaturally so, as if something large and unseen was holding its breath just beyond the pines. Then, one by one, our phones lost signal. Molly's first, then mine, then Harren's. Jay checked his and said, "Huh, dead too. Guess we're finally off the grid." He grinned as if that was a bonus, like it was part of the plan. But it wasn't. None of it was. I remember staring out the window and realizing the sunlight looked wrong. It wasn't cloudy. It wasn't sunset. It just seemed dimmed, as though someone had dialed down the brightness in the world. Then the fog came. It didn't roll in gradually. It fell. A sudden, suffocating white wall that erased the world in seconds. The road vanished beneath us. Jay slowed down, but not enough to ease the unease rising in my gut. I tensed against the door while Harren leaned forward, squinting through the windshield like he could will the fog to part. That's when we saw it. A buck stepped out into the road. Jay hit the brakes so hard, the seatbelt carved a bruise into my chest. The SUV fishtailed with a sickening screech and came to a stop just feet from the creature. It didn't move. The buck stood in the middle of the road, massive and unmoving, with a rack of antlers that looked less like bone and more like twisted black branches. Its eyes didn't reflect our headlights. They glowed, a dull, smoldering red, like embers burning at the end of the world. Jay tapped the horn. The buck didn't even blink. Then 2 more appeared, one on either side of the road. Same size, same eerie stillness, same burning eyes. They didn't sniff or graze or react. They just watched, silent, menacing. "Why aren't they moving?" Molly whispered. Jay inched the SUV forward, slowly maneuvering around the unnatural triangle they formed. The deer didn't react. I turned in my seat to look back. They were still there. Same formation, same distance, until they melted into the white fog behind us. The road got worse after that. Narrower. The center lines vanished. The pavement cracked and warped. Trees arched overhead, their branches clawing the SUV with long scraping sounds that felt too deliberate to be natural. That's when we saw the first sign. It wasn't an official road sign. It was a weathered wooden plank nailed to a tree with a black spiral carved deep into it. A few minutes later came another, a stick figure, grotesquely bent backward at a spine-snapping angle. Then a third, two hollow eyes carved wide open, watching us. Eventually, actual hand-painted signs began appearing, spaced erratically like old mile markers, only they didn't show numbers. They all read the same thing. "I'll hurt you. Stay on the road." Over and over, again and again. Jay started mumbling to himself, words too soft and jumbled to catch. Harron sat forward, tense. "Let's turn around," he said. "This isn't right." "There's nowhere to turn," Jay replied, eyes locked on the cracked road ahead. And he was right. The forest hemmed us in on both sides. We said nothing more, just kept going. Eventually, the road split. Two paths, no signs, no lights, just fog. The left dipped gently into thicker woods. The right climbed up sharply, cracked and jagged. Jay went right. That's when it got worse. The radio turned on by itself, full volume, blasting static so loud it made my ears ring. We turned it off. It came back on. Again and again. Then the air vents exploded with freezing air, icy enough to make my teeth ache, even though no one had touched the dial. The fog started seeping into the SUV, not just as moisture, actual fog. Thick tendrils coiled up from the floorboards, swirling around our legs and filling the cabin with a sour, rotting stench that made our stomachs churn. Molly gagged and buried her face in her scarf. I pulled my hoodie up over my nose, trying not to throw up. Then we heard her. A voice, a woman's voice, broken, panicked, pleading. "Help me, please, I'm lost." She sounded close, too close, like she was running just outside the SUV through the trees. We all heard it. "No," Jay said suddenly, sharply. "Nope, that's nothing, just the wind." But we all knew it wasn't. Harron reached for the door handle. "What if she's real?" he asked. I grabbed his wrist. "Don't open it," I said. "If you do, we won't get you back." Something deep in me, some ancient primal instinct, knew it to be true. If he stepped out, he was gone. Forever. Jay hit the gas. The fog thickened, pressing against the windshield like a living thing. The voice faded behind us, swallowed by silence. Then we saw it. A bridge. Narrow, decaying wood planks, rusted steel beams, no rails. On either side, the fog dropped into nothingness. A sign stood beside it. "Do not stop." Jay hesitated. "This thing doesn't look safe," he said. "There's no way back," I said. Then, without knowing why, I opened the door and stepped out. The ground buzzed beneath my feet, not with sound but vibration, like something massive and restless slumbered beneath the forest floor. I walked to the edge of the bridge and looked down. Faces, human faces, hundreds pressed into the planks, mouths frozen open in silent screams, eyes wide, pleading, trapped. I backed away, heart racing. "Drive, now!" Jay didn't argue. The bridge groaned beneath us, wood screaming with every inch. I was sure it would collapse, but it didn't. And the moment we reached the other side, it all vanished. The fog, the smell, the cold. The sky brightened. The trees looked normal again. Birds sang. The road widened and smoothed beneath our tires. It was like none of it had ever happened. We didn't speak, not for a long time. An hour later, we pulled into a small-town gas station. Jay went inside first. I followed close behind. "What road is this?" he asked the guy behind the counter. The man blinked slowly. "Highway 6. Jay frowned. "We took a shortcut through the woods. There was a bridge." The man's expression didn't change. "Ain't no bridge that way. Not for 50 miles. We checked our phones. No GPS log, no detour recorded, nothing. That night at the hot springs, we barely said a word. We sat with our backs to the woods, avoiding each other's eyes. None of us wanted to admit what we'd seen, what we'd felt. I haven't driven through the mountains since. If my GPS ever reroutes, I ignore it. I don't follow unmarked roads. I don't take shortcuts. Not anymore. Because I don't think we were meant to make it back. And whatever's out there in those woods, it's still waiting." Story 2. I work in IT for a tech company in Phoenix. Not exactly the kind of guy you'd expect to sign up for a weekend in the woods, especially in some off-grid cabin miles from anywhere. But here we were. It was Carly's idea. Her birthday was coming up, and she said she didn't want the usual scene. No clubs, no loud bars, no crowded restaurants. Just quiet, stillness, something unplugged, as she put it. She found this listing online for a remote cabin way out in the mountains near Qua, New Mexico. Tiny town, practically a dot on the map. The cabin was advertised as rustic, no Wi-Fi, no cell service, totally isolated. Most people would have scrolled right past, but Carly got excited. She talked about campfires under the stars, card games, cheap beer, and no distractions. Jess and Nate were in immediately. They're both nature-loving adventure types. Nate calls it trail magic when he finds a forgotten granola bar in his backpack. Jess brings her tarot cards on every trip like they're part of a survival kit. Me? I didn't want to be the killjoy. Figured it'd be a couple of cold nights, a lot of bugs, and some awkward forest pooping. But fine. It was Carly's birthday, so I said yes. We left Phoenix around noon on Friday. Carly was driving her beat-up Subaru that sounds like it's dying every time it goes uphill. The car was crammed with sleeping bags, a Bluetooth speaker, way too many bags of chips, a half-stocked cooler full of beer, and Jess's tarot deck sealed in a little metal tin. Nate, naturally, had strapped a GoPro to the dashboard. He said he was filming 4 Idiots Die in the Woods, the documentary. The first few hours were totally normal, laughing, off-key singing, sharing snacks. I remember Nate eating peanut butter with a plastic fork because he forgot a spoon. Jess kept pulling tarot cards just to mess around. It felt easy, carefree. But then the GPS glitched. We were somewhere past the last recognizable town when it happened. The screen flickered, then rerouted us off the highway onto a one-lane road with no visible markings. The new path twisted between thick groves of trees that arched above us, almost like a tunnel. The pavement was cracked and faded, like no one had driven it in years. I suggested turning back, but Carly just pointed to the GPS. Still says we're headed the right way. So we kept going. After about 30 minutes of creeping down this decaying road, we reached a fork. No signs. The GPS had frozen completely. One road curved left, the other right. Both looked the same, narrow, overgrown, swallowed by trees. We sat there for a minute in silence. Jess finally said, "Let's see what the cards say." She pulled one out, 2 of swords. A woman blindfolded, holding crossed blades. "A choice," Jess said. "Both paths unknown." Nate pointed to the left. "My gut says that way." Carly shrugged and turned left. That's when the air started to change. The trees leaned in tighter, crowding the road. Branches scraped the windows. The temperature inside dropped, sharp and sudden. Carly reached for the dial. "The heat's on," she said. I touched my knees. My palms were clammy. The cold felt wrong, not just chilly, but hollow, like the air had been sucked out. Then the engine hiccuped. Not a stall, just a violent jerk, like something invisible had yanked the car backward. Everyone tensed. No one spoke. And then up ahead, he appeared. A man, standing in the middle of the road, barefoot, wearing a tattered hospital gown. His arms dangled at his sides, head tilted, like he was listening for something we couldn't hear. Carly slammed the brakes. We all stared. Do we help him?" Nate whispered. I tapped the horn. The man turned. His face, God, his eyes were stretched open impossibly wide, like they'd been peeled back. His mouth hung slack, lips cracked, dried blood trailing from the corners. He didn't walk. He lurched, like a puppet tugged by frayed strings. "Back up!" I shouted. Carly threw it in reverse. The tires spun, caught, and we shot backward. Branches slapped the windows. My heart hammered. Then we were back at the fork. Same road, same trees, no sign of the man. Carly didn't say a word. She just turned right. This road was worse. No pavement, just dirt and potholes. We bounced hard in our seats. The trees leaned in even closer, blotting out what little sunlight remained. Fog began to gather, and then a gate. Old, rusted, chain-wrapped, padlock swinging uselessly. Dead end. Carly muttered something under her breath, probably a curse, and threw it in reverse. The engine roared, but we didn't move. "Are we stuck?" Nate asked. Carly opened her door. "I'll check." I got out with her. That's when I saw them. Handprints. Dozens of them. streaked across the back window, the doors, the hood, smudged like they'd been dragged by wet, clawed hands. No tire marks, no footprints, nothing in the dirt to show we had even arrived. It was like the road had swallowed us. And then he was back. The man in the gown, standing by the tree line, watching. Behind him, more figures stepped out from between the trunks, all barefoot, all in stained hospital gowns, silent, pale, mouths gaping, eyes impossibly wide. I ran back to the car. Jess was yelling, "They're everywhere!" Doors slammed, locks clicked. Nate was muttering, "Nope, nope, nope," over and over. "Play something," he suddenly shouted. "What?" Carly snapped. "Music, anything from the playlist." I grabbed her phone, fumbled, hit play. A bubbly, upbeat indie song filled the car, something we'd been singing to earlier, back when this was supposed to be fun. Outside, the figures stopped. The whispering, I hadn't even noticed it until now, ceased. It had been there all along, just beneath the noise, a low hum, like dozens of voices mumbling under their breath. Gone now. The fog began to lift. Carly hit the gas. The car lurched forward. We drove in silence. I don't know how long. Time felt broken. But eventually we saw it. A road sign. Then a cell signal bar. Then another. We didn't talk. No one said a thing. Carly just kept driving until we saw a motel in Espanola. 1 room, 4 people, all the lights on. We slept in our clothes. In the morning, Nate wiped his GoPro clean without a word. Carly never mentioned the cabin again. Jess didn't touch her tarot deck the whole ride back. And me? I've spent hours online, on maps, forums, satellite view, trying to find that fork in the road. But it's not there. I don't know what we drove into, or what waited for us in those woods. Story 3. I work in IT. My days are a loop of endless troubleshooting, resetting passwords, reviving dead servers, talking clients off the ledge when their screens freeze. It's a grind, sterile and confined, the kind of job that slowly erodes your sense of time. I don't take road trips. I don't take chances. I plan my life down to the last detail. Every hour mapped out neatly in my calendar, or at least I did, until Mark called. It was just past 9 p.m. when my phone buzzed. I almost didn't answer. I rarely do if it's not on the calendar, but his name lit up the screen like a ghost from a past life. Mark L., my old college roommate. We hadn't spoken in years, not since graduation. We used to be inseparable, long nights binging horror movies, midnight gas station food runs, dumb dares, terrible hangovers. Then we drifted, as people do. His voice crackled through the speaker like he was calling from another world. He said 4 words, "Let's get lost a while." No greeting, no explanation, just that. And I said yes, no hesitation. I still don't fully understand why. Maybe it was the fatigue, spiritual, emotional, whatever you want to call it. My world had shrunk to cubicle walls and the soft hum of machines. Every day, identical to the last. A dull ache I couldn't name growing inside me. Mark's voice, wild, unpredictable, rattled something loose. I booked the first flight to Denver. He picked me up in his old Subaru, still running on stubbornness and duct tape. It looked the same as I remembered. Dented doors, a cracked dashboard, and a passenger window stuck halfway down. Mark had changed, but only slightly. His hair was longer, face more weathered, and he carried a quieter energy, like he'd seen things he didn't know how to explain. But within minutes, it was like no time had passed. We were 2 idiots with no agenda and the open road. We didn't plan anything, just started driving. We roamed through Utah, Arizona, touched New Mexico, hit the usual spots, Zion, Arches, a ghost town with 1 flickering neon sign, and a bar run by a man who looked like he'd never blinked. We laughed, hiked, argued over music, drank beer that somehow always ended up warm. He never refilled the ice. Somewhere around Chinle, in a motel parking lot, we watched the sun bleed over the hills. That's when Mark told me about the trail. No name, no signs, just something a stranger at the bar whispered to him over a shot of whiskey. The edge of the world, the guy had called it. A place where you'd feel the universe stretch around you like you could step out of time. I rolled my eyes. Mark had always chased the mythical, but something about the way he said it, low, serious, not with his usual grin, struck me. I didn't want the trip to end. I didn't want to return to my hollow life, so I said, "Let's go." We turned north, left paved roads behind, let GPS sputter and die. The trail was more of a suggestion. Cracked earth, thorny brush, no signs of civilization for miles. Just when I thought we'd have to turn back, we saw it. A soft yellow glow, way off in the distance, not flickering, not moving, just there. Mark leaned forward. "You see that?" I nodded, heart thudding. It wasn't headlights, wasn't fire, it was wrong. "We should check it out," he said. I hesitated. Every part of me said no, but I was tired of saying no. Mark made everything feel like a story worth chasing. We drove until the road was nothing but dirt, then parked and walked. The air changed fast. The vegetation thickened, turned grey-green and sharp-edged, like desert flora wasn't supposed to. The temperature dropped, not freezing, just off, enough to make your instincts twitch. Then we saw it. A house, barely standing, its wood bleached and splintered, sagging like a tired skeleton. One window glowed faintly. Mark knocked, no response. Then the door creaked open by itself. I wanted to run. Every fibre of my being screamed wrong, but Mark stepped inside without hesitation, and I followed. The house was empty. No furniture, no signs of life, just planks, dust, and a thick smell, decaying flowers, sweet and sour like something rotting beneath the floorboards. The light came from the back. We moved toward it, but the hallway stretched. No matter how far we walked, the door didn't get closer. I turned to suggest we leave, but the front door was gone. Gone. A solid wall stood where it had been. I whispered, "Mark?" But my voice sounded paper-thin, like the house swallowed it. He didn't answer, just stared ahead. Then the light went out. Pitch black, but it wasn't normal dark. It was alive, heavy, breathing. I reached out, grabbed his jacket, then something else touched me, on the back of my neck. A breath, wet, cold. I spun around. Nothing. Then a voice whispered, not loud, but right there. "Why did you come here?" I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Then Mark yanked my wrist. "Go," he hissed. We ran, or tried to. The hallway twisted, buckled, the walls pulsed, the wood groaned like it hated us. Then light returned. The room appeared again. We burst in and saw the pit. Perfectly circular, bottomless, pure black. It absorbed everything, light, sound, thought. And within it, eyes, dozens of them, watching, waiting. Mark grabbed me, pulled me back. Then came the noise, not a scream, not a growl. A laugh stretched into a sob, warped into something wrong. We ran. The hallway changed again. This time the door appeared. We didn't think. We sprinted. Burst into the desert night. Ran until the car came into view. Didn't look back. We drove. No music, no talking, just the hum of the engine and the thudding of our hearts. By sunrise we found a gas station, bought water, pretended we were okay. I asked the clerk if anyone lived near where we'd been. He gave me a long look. "Out past the ridge. That's protected land. Nobody lives there. No buildings, no roads." Mark didn't speak again, not for the rest of the trip. I dropped him off in Albuquerque. He hugged me longer than expected. Then he was gone. 3 days later, he stopped replying to my texts. Then a letter came. No return address, just my name. Inside was one line written in a shaky hand. It followed me. At the bottom, something smudged, dark red. I haven't taken a road trip since, haven't deviated from my schedule. I lock every door, I keep the lights on, and I never ever go anywhere unplanned. Not anymore. Story 4. My name's Sam, and what I'm about to tell you happened years ago, back when I still thought solo road trips could mend the kind of wounds that fester quietly in the background of your life. I just walked away from a soul-sucking job and a breakup that left me gasping like I'd been sucker-punched underwater. In the haze of confusion, pain, and stubborn hope, I convinced myself that the answer was simple. Drive away. Start fresh. Seattle was supposed to be the clean slate, the place where I could rebuild from scratch. Flying would have been easier, cheaper, faster, less grueling. But no, I had to do it the dramatic way. I packed my beat-up Jeep Cherokee with a week's worth of clothes, survival snacks, a few too many notebooks, and a half-functional playlist that skipped every third song. I wanted to feel the journey, to reclaim something intangible. Freedom, maybe. Or myself. Whatever that means when you're 27 and heartbroken. The first 2 days were cathartic. The kind of solitude that soaks into your bones in a way that almost feels healing. Long stretches of empty highway, the occasional sketchy truck stop, and vast silences broken only by the thrum of tires and static heavy music. I felt untethered for the first time in months, like I didn't owe anyone anything. But by the third day, somewhere deep in the middle of Montana's seemingly endless sprawl, something shifted. The landscape grew desolate, not beautiful, not cinematic, just empty in a way that made you feel microscopic. My phone had stopped picking up a signal hours earlier, not even one lousy bar. That's when my fuel light blinked on. I didn't panic, not at first. Even out here, there had to be a gas station within reach. I slowed down, started scanning for signs, but mile after mile rolled under my tires, and there was nothing. No exit signs, no billboards, not even one of those ancient gas stations masquerading as diners, just fences and the kind of open nothing that makes your skin crawl. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw a rusted metal sign leaning at a sharp angle out of a ditch. Weeds tried to swallow it whole, but I caught the faded letters, "Welcome to Don." No population number, just a bent arrow pointing down a gravel road I hadn't even noticed until that moment. With my fuel gauge practically begging for mercy, I turned off the highway and onto the gravel. The road narrowed fast, crowded on both sides by trees that leaned just a little too close. Their branches scraped the sides of my Jeep with shrill squeals. Like the forest was trying to peel the vehicle open, I slowed to a crawl. After 10 minutes of winding through that tightening corridor, I felt the first real jolt of dread. Not fear, not yet. Just that skin-prickling, gut-knotting sense that I was trespassing somewhere not meant to be found, somewhere that had forgotten people existed. Then the woods ended, and there it was, Don. It didn't look like a ghost town exactly, but it didn't look alive either. A small, old-fashioned gas station sat crookedly at the edge of what could barely be called a main street. Across from it was a diner, its flickering neon open sign casting an unsettling pink glow, despite everything around it seeming frozen in time. A few sagging, warped buildings stood nearby, too damaged to guess their original purpose. I pulled into the gas station. The pump looked ancient, like a relic from the 1950s, but oddly enough it had a credit card slot. I swiped my card, half expecting sparks or error messages. It worked. The numbers ticked slowly upward as I fueled up. That's when I noticed the windows. They were spotless, not just clean but unnaturally polished, like someone had scrubbed them that morning. But when I tried to peer inside, the reflection was all that looked back. No Clark, no movement, just shelves of dusty supplies and my own distorted face. Once I topped off the tank, I headed inside to grab a drink. The air inside was wrong, not foul, just stale in the way that suggests no one had breathed it in years. The fridge hummed loud and lonely. I grabbed a Coke, left a $5 bill on the counter and waited. No one came out, no voice from the back, just silence. Back outside, I noticed the diner across the street still pulsing that faint, dying neon glow. One booth was brightly lit. Just one. I told myself I'd stop in, a quick bite, some fries, maybe coffee. I hadn't eaten since breakfast, and I felt like I was fraying at the edges. Inside, the scent hit first, faint grease, old oil, a pinch of something like mildew buried beneath years of fried food memories. The place wasn't dirty exactly, just aged, like time had thickened and settled into the wallpaper. Behind the counter stood a tall woman in a crisp, pale blue uniform. Her hair was pinned up tightly, makeup perfect to the point of being eerie. She smiled, wide, flawless, and said, "Sit anywhere you like, hon." Her voice was smooth, too smooth, the kind of tone you only hear in pre-recorded customer service messages. I sat in the glowing booth. A laminated menu was already waiting, every item underlined with customer favorites scribbled in pencil. I went with grilled cheese and fries, simple, safe. She returned almost instantly, as if she already knew what I'd order. "You're not from around here," she said, setting the plate down. "Nope," I said, forcing a smile. "Just passing through." Her smile widened in a way that shouldn't be possible. They all say that. I ate quickly. The grilled cheese was wrong, not inedible, just uncanny, like someone tried to recreate it from memory, but forgot what melted cheese was supposed to taste like. The fries were limp and lukewarm. When I stepped back outside, my Jeep was gone. Gone. The parking lot was empty. I stood there frozen, heart punching my ribs. I walked in circles, searching for tire marks, oil spots, anything. There was nothing. No glass, no signs of a break-in, just void. I turned toward the gas station. It was different now. The lights were off. The windows were no longer spotless. They were crusted in grime. Inside, the shelves had collapsed. The place looked like it had been abandoned for decades. Something moved at the edge of one of the nearby buildings. A shape, slouched, twitching. I called out, voice cracking, "Hello?" No answer. I bolted back toward the diner, slammed my palms on the glass. It was cold, bone-deep cold. Inside, the lights were dim now. The waitress was gone, but someone sat in the booth I had just left. Same hoodie, same Coke bottle, same posture. He looked up, and I saw my own face. But the expression was off. Too still, too perfect. Like his muscles didn't know how to make any other shape. My own face smiled back at me, frozen. I staggered backward, nearly tripping. Panic clawed up my throat. I turned and ran through the side alley into the gnarled woods. Didn't care where I was going, just needed to move. Branches sliced my jacket. Roots grabbed at my ankles. The forest grew denser. The sky vanished. Then came the whispers. Soft at first, then louder. "Stay. You were meant to stay. You belong here, Sam." I dropped to my knees, hands over my ears. It didn't matter. The voices weren't coming from the outside. And then, headlights. A warm glow cutting through the dark. My Jeep, engine running, driver's side door open. I didn't question it. I didn't look around. I ran, jumped in, slammed the door and hit the gas. The road back was different, twisted, wrong, turns I didn't remember taking, but I kept driving, refusing to stop, refusing to look in the mirror. Eventually, lights appeared. Civilization. A town. People. A motel with flickering vacancy sign. I checked in, locked every door, and kept every light on until the sun came up. The next morning, while searching for my phone charger, I opened the glove box. There was a photo. It showed the diner, that booth, the Coke bottle, me, smiling. But the eyes in the photo didn't look alive. I never found Don again. I looked. No records, no photos, no mention on any map. But ever since, I've kept my tank full, just in case something tries to bring me back. Story 5. The man on Route A. My name's Dylan. I was barely out of high school when this happened. Young, idealistic, and definitely not ready for what we stumbled into. I'm older now, supposedly wiser, but I still think about that road trip more than I probably should. What was supposed to be a carefree, memory-making adventure turned into something that fractured the three of us in ways none of us could have predicted. It was meant to be our last ride, a spontaneous screw-it-let's-go road trip before life got serious. You know, one final reckless adventure before the job interviews, the rent payments, the looming weight of credit scores and expectations. Just us, the road, and a sense of escape. There was me, of course, then Clay, my best friend since sophomore year, and Jules, who was Clay's ex's best friend, but somehow ended up becoming the glue that held us all together. Clay had just been through the kind of breakup that turns a guy inside out. His girlfriend of nearly 3 years left him for a guy who looked like he bench-pressed motorcycles and drank gasoline for breakfast. Clay didn't take it well. He started drinking too much, skipping classes, avoiding calls. At first, I figured it was typical Clay melodrama. He always had a bit of a flair for theatrics. But this wasn't that. He was unraveling like a loose thread no one could tuck back in. Jules was the one who suggested the trip. She said we all needed a breather, said Clay needed to clear his head, said I looked like I hadn't slept in weeks, which wasn't wrong. I was drowning under college applications, rejection emails, pressure from my parents to figure it out. It was like I was living in a fog where everything felt like both too much and nothing at all. So we loaded up Clay's dad's ancient Dodge Intrepid, possibly the ugliest car in the continental US, and it smelled like a forgotten locker room. We packed sleeping bags, energy drinks, trail mix, candy, and a truck stop paper atlas we grabbed just for fun. No GPS route, no plans, just head north and see where the road took us. The first few days were a blur, fast food wrappers, long stretches of cracked highway, and weird roadside attractions. We stopped at a giant dinosaur park in Arizona, wandered through a supposedly haunted mine in Utah, Ate at a diner shaped like a UFO. It was dumb and incredible. Clay even started laughing again. Not fully okay, but better. At least that's what we thought. Then we crossed into Idaho. We ended up outside a small town called Arco and stayed the night in a squat, half-abandoned motel that looked like it hadn't changed since the 60s. Faded lime green curtains, buzzing neon vacancy sign, and a front desk clerk who acted like handing us our room keys was the greatest inconvenience of his life. That night, I woke up drenched in sweat. The room was cold, almost too cold, but my skin was clammy, and my heart was racing like I'd just sprinted a mile. I couldn't shake this horrible feeling, like I'd been watched in my sleep, like someone had been standing over me, breathing just out of view. At breakfast, Jules said she had weird dreams, nothing specific, just this heavy, choking dread. Clay brushed it off with a joke, blaming the junk food and caffeine. "We're just poisoned," he said, popping a Tylenol. "If I die, bury me in a Taco Bell wrapper." We were supposed to head east, but Jules pointed at a red-lined path on the paper atlas labeled Route A. It cut across the map like a scar, bypassing a major detour between Arco and Salmon. It wasn't on our phones. Google Maps showed nothing but dense forest. Jules thought it was just outdated data, maybe a scenic back road that locals used. We were dumb enough to believe that. We turned off onto Route A just after noon. At first, it was what you'd expect from a back road. Potholes, faded asphalt, dried brush. No houses, no signs, nothing unusual, but then something shifted. I realized we hadn't seen another car in over 40 minutes. No other travelers, no mailboxes, no fences, just endless trees and that eerie, creeping silence. It was the kind of silence that made your ears ring from the absence of sound. No birds, no insects, no wind, just the hum of our tires and the occasional groan of the car's old frame. Then we saw him, a man, standing alone on the side of the road. He wore a tan coat zipped all the way to his chin, even though the day was blazing hot. Pale skin, no hat, no sunglasses. At his feet was a single duffel bag. No sign of a vehicle, no backpack, no water. Clay slowed instinctively. Jules leaned forward from the front seat. "Don't," she said firmly. "Seriously, don't stop." "He'll die out here," Clay muttered. "There's nothing for miles." I stayed quiet. The guy didn't look dangerous. He looked ordinary. But there was something wrong, something in how he stood, like he wasn't tired or desperate, just waiting, like he knew we'd show up. Clay stopped. The man opened the rear door, slid in beside me and nodded once. "Thanks," he said. "Appreciate it." "Where you headed?" I asked. "That's it," he replied, without inflection. He didn't elaborate, didn't ask us who we were or where we were going. He just stared out the window, clutching the straps of his duffel bag like his life depended on it. The bag didn't sit right. It slumped strangely, too heavy in the wrong places. Not clothes, not gear, something else. The road stretched on, unchanged. But the light started to shift, subtly at first. The sun didn't set, but everything got duller, more muted, like the world had been drained of saturation. Shadows looked off, angles didn't line up. It was like driving through a photograph that was slowly fading. Jules glanced at the dashboard clock. "It's 4:44, she whispered. I still remember that. All fours. It made my stomach turn. Then the pavement ended. No warning. 1 second it was cracked asphalt. The next it was just raw earth. Crumbling, uneven dirt, like whoever paved it had simply given up. Clay stopped the car. "I think we missed something," he muttered. I turned to the hitchhiker. "This way you get out." He looked at me, and something inside me went cold. His eyes, there was nothing behind them. No emotion, no humanity, just glassy voids. "No," he said, "this is where you get out." Everything exploded into chaos. Jules lunged for the door. Clay slammed the gear into reverse. I reached for my handle, locked. All the doors were. The windows wouldn't budge. Clay pounded the horn. Nothing. The car started moving again, but none of us were touching anything. It rolled forward, silent, steady, deeper into the earth. Jules was screaming. Clay was cursing and slamming pedals. I froze. The hitchhiker just stared straight ahead. And then the world tilted. I mean, actually tilted. The horizon bent, like the sky was bending inward, like we were being funneled into some massive unseen pit. The light vanished. The dirt turned black. The air thickened. Then came the hum. Low, constant, alive. It filled my ears, my lungs, my brain, like breathing through dust. I could feel it behind my eyes. Jules was sobbing. Clay screamed something I couldn't make out, and then the hitchhiker leaned in toward me, lips at my ear. He whispered something I've never been able to remember. Then impact, blackout. I came to with the taste of blood in my mouth. The car was parked on a normal road, paved, real. The sun was setting, the sky was blue. The passenger door was wide open. The hitchhiker was gone, so was the duffel. Clay was outside the car, vomiting. Jules curled in the back seat, shaking. Neither of them spoke. Eventually, cars started passing, a pickup, then another. We were back, but none of us ever really returned. Clay sold the car a few days later, said he couldn't even sit in it without feeling like bugs were crawling under his skin. Jules ghosted us, deleted everything. No goodbye, no trace. And me, I've tried to explain it. Heat stroke, hallucination, maybe a gas leak, but Route A, it doesn't exist. It never did. I've checked every map, every archive. Still, sometimes late at night when I'm driving alone on some quiet stretch of road, I see something up ahead. A man, pale skin, thumb raised. And every time I drive past without slowing down, because I don't think we found him by accident. I think he was waiting. Story 6. That summer, I graduated with a communications degree, but no job lined up. I had just enough savings from a coffee shop gig to keep me going for a couple of months. It felt like a weird pause, like life was still buffering, as if nothing was happening yet. That's probably why I agreed to the road trip so quickly. No real planning. Just Tyler, Danny, and me crammed into Tyler's old beat-up Subaru, a cooler full of Red Bulls, and a vague idea of exploring the Southwest. The plan, if you could even call it that, was days of driving through Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Ghost towns, campsites, national parks, no hotels, just tents, gas station snacks, and questionable hygiene. It felt spontaneous, and we thought it was brave at the time. Now it just seems stupid. The first couple of days were solid. We made it to Moab, hiked a bit, and crashed in a dusty campground surrounded by red rocks and a sea of stars. Danny brought her Polaroid camera and took photos constantly, everything from gas station signs to us brushing our teeth next to the car. Tyler handled all the driving because none of us trusted Danny's tendency to forget the difference between left and right. It was day 3 when things started to turn. We were trying to make our way through southern Utah, somewhere between nothing and nowhere. The GPS had started acting up, showing us floating in a grey void. No roads, no landmarks, just the blue dot moving aimlessly on the screen. We kept driving, figuring we'd run into a town sooner or later. That's when we saw the sign, Carrion Ridge East P. The paint was sun-bleached and chipped, like no one had touched it in decades. But we were low on gas, and the temperature gauge was creeping up. Tyler didn't hesitate. He just turned the wheel, like the car had made the decision for him. The road narrowed almost immediately, the pavement turning to cracked asphalt. Fences appeared and disappeared in the distance, and I kept checking my phone, but it was stuck. Blank screen, just that same spinning circle. Then we rolled into town. There wasn't even a real border. One second we were in desert nothingness, and the next we were passing under a crooked wooden arch. "Welcome to Carrion Ridge," the sign read, except the 9 in established 1909 had been scratched out deeply, like someone had used a knife. There were no people, no movement, just one gas station with a sagging roof and a busted neon sign that buzzed faintly in the silence. We coasted in, running on fumes. Tyler hopped out and tried the pump. It clicked but didn't start. Danny said she'd go inside and check. I stayed in the car, staring out at the road we'd just come from. But something made me turn my head. He was across the street, just standing there. A man, or maybe just the shape of one, wearing a dark blue jumpsuit. His arms hung straight down like they didn't bend right, and his head was tilted slightly, like he was listening but not with his ears. I couldn't see his face. The light wasn't great, but I felt him looking at me. I felt it like pressure on my chest. I blinked, and he was gone. No footsteps, no door slamming, just nothing. Danny came out looking different. She wasn't running or anything, just pale, tight-lipped, her eyes unfocused, like she was doing complicated math in her head. She slid into the back seat and handed Tyler a folded-up paper map. "The guy inside wouldn't talk at first," she said. just stood there behind the counter. Then he told me, "People don't stay here long." That's all he said. Then he gave me this. Tyler tried to crack a joke, something like nice tourism slogan, but his voice wavered halfway through. We drove out fast. There was a gravel road behind the gas station, and we took it, hoping it would lead somewhere better. After a few miles, we found a spot off to the side, some kind of half-cleared area near a ridge. We parked, pitched the tent, and tried to act normal. Ate granola bars. Granola. Played cards. Tyler even tried to get a fire going, but gave up after 5 minutes. By nightfall, none of us were talking much. I woke up sometime around 3 o'clock a.m. I didn't hear anything at first, just had that feeling, like your body knows something's wrong before your brain does. My chest felt tight. I could hear my pulse in my ears. Then it came. Footsteps, slow and crunching, like someone dragging their feet across gravel. Not close at first, then closer and closer. I didn't move, just reached over and felt Danny's arm. She was already awake, her eyes wide, breathing shallow, frozen. "Did you hear that?" Tyler whispered from the other side. We all listened. The steps stopped right at the edge of the tent. I couldn't breathe. Then I moved, reached for the flashlight, unzipped the tent fast, and shined it out. Nothing, just rocks and the faint marks of our own tire tracks. But the air felt wrong, like we'd missed something. We didn't sleep again. We just sat in silence, counting the minutes until sunrise. When it came, we threw everything in the car and took off. We didn't even talk about directions, just drove. But then, after about an hour, we passed the same arch. "Welcome to Carry On Ridge." None of us had turned around. Tyler pulled over and put the car in park. We sat there for a long time. No one said anything. We just stared at the sign. The gas station wasn't there anymore. We tried different roads, turns, backtracks. It didn't matter. Every single one led back to the same place, like we were stuck in a loop. Eventually, we gave up. We drove to the highest point we could find, a ridge that overlooked what should have been miles of road, and parked. The sun set behind us. No one unpacked anything. I kept refreshing my phone. It would flash static, then coordinates I didn't recognize, then go dark again. Then Danny said, "We're not alone." I looked at the shapes, 3, maybe more, standing just at the edge of the ridge, too far for detail, but close enough to know they were human-shaped. Then they moved, not fast, not slow, just steady. They started circling the car. Gravel shifted beneath their feet. I could hear it, even through the windows. Tyler fumbled with the keys and started the engine. The headlights swung around as we peeled off the ridge, and just for a second I looked back. Gone. But I could still hear that crunching sound. Even after we hit pavement again, even after we started seeing real trees and roads, and a sign that finally said something else. "Welcome to Aravine. Population 300. We found a diner. The lights were warm. The door had a real bell. We walked in like we just crawled out of a war zone. The waitress didn't ask questions. She just poured coffee. Didn't even charge us. We never talked about it. Not on the drive back. Not after. Tyler calls it a GPS glitch. Danny moved to Oregon and doesn't camp anymore. But every now and then, when I'm on the road, I think about that place, about the people who don't stay there long, and I wonder if the place still exists, just waiting for the next unlucky travelers. Story 7. I work as a freelance graphic designer, which, when you think about it, means I spend most of my days staring at screens, rendering, editing, and occasionally forgetting what fresh air even smells like. It's a strange mix of self-imposed isolation and creative freedom. But here's the thing. When life starts to feel like it's on the edge of falling apart, I can unplug, pack up, and just leave. No boss to call, no one waiting on me. I can disappear for a while, and that's exactly what I needed that summer. Riley, my best friend since college, had just gotten out of a long-term relationship. One of those breakups that takes years to unravel. Not loud, no big dramatic scenes, but it was the kind where something inside you slowly rots and breaks. It was silent, painful. She was quiet for days, barely touching her food, and I could tell she didn't have the words to explain what she was feeling. I felt helpless, not knowing how to help her. So I came up with the idea. Why don't we go somewhere, anywhere? It wasn't much of a plan. In fact, it wasn't a plan at all. It was just a vague suggestion to escape, to get away from everything and everyone. So we did. We loaded up my Jeep with snacks, a few changes of clothes, our phones, and a pair of Bluetooth speakers, and left from Tennessee with no real destination in mind. We figured we'd hit Utah at some point, but even that was just an idea. The trip was spontaneous, free-spirited, and cinematic in its simplicity. We agreed to stay off the interstates as much as possible. We wanted to take back roads, stop when we felt like it, and drive when the mood struck us. It felt rebellious, like we were claiming back control of our lives, even if only for a little while. The first couple of days were solid, if a little boring through Missouri, but we made the most of it. We found a few quirky antique shops, small towns that were stuck in time, and once we even slept in the Jeep at a rest stop near a cornfield. We laughed about nothing, ate junk food like it was the first meal we'd had in months, and let the open road swallow us up. For a brief moment, everything felt right again. We were pieces of ourselves again. On the third day, we found ourselves somewhere in the middle of Kansas, where the land stretches out so flat and vast. It feels like the earth itself is trying to contain something, and that's when we realized we were low on gas. It wasn't an emergency, just a quiet reminder that we were out in the middle of nowhere. Riley spotted a green exit sign in the distance. Moorcroft was written on it in faded letters that had clearly been there for decades. It seemed like the perfect spot, a small town where we could gas up, maybe find a diner, and stretch our legs. As soon as we took the exit, things started to feel different. The road narrowed almost immediately, like we were being funneled into something we couldn't control. The pavement turned to gravel without any warning, and every bump in this wheel felt like a jolt to my gut. The sky looked the same, but the land surrounding us was eerily still. It felt as if the world had pressed a pause button, and everything around us was holding its breath. We drove for miles, and still there was no sign of the town. My eyes kept flicking to the odometer, watching the numbers tick higher and higher. Finally we saw it. The sign, "Welcome to Moorcroft," painted by hand, white on old wood. It was crooked, leaning off a rusted fence post, like someone had just thrown it up without a second thought. No population number, no county listed, just that sign. An afterthought. We passed it, still expecting to see buildings, to see something, but there was nothing. No stores, no houses, just empty land and the sound of tires crunching on gravel. Eventually, we saw one house, 2 stories, faded white siding, a porch half collapsed, windows all boarded up from the inside, but there was a single light on the porch, a bulb flickering faintly. I figured it was just the wind, but the air felt too still. Riley didn't say anything. She just tightened her grip on the wheel and stared ahead, driving deeper into what felt like an endless loop of desolation. Then more houses appeared, all wrecked, all empty-looking. Every single one had a metal mailbox at the end of its gravel drive, and every flag on those mailboxes was raised, like someone had left letters to be picked up. I felt a chill creep up my spine, but I didn't say anything, neither did Riley. We passed the gas station next. It looked like it had been burned down and abandoned. The sign above the store had been blacked out, possibly by fire, or maybe just paint. The windows were broken, and the door was hanging loose on its hinges. But standing next to the pump, there was a man, shirtless, tall, his skin so pale it almost looked grey. He didn't move. He didn't look at us, not directly, but I felt like his gaze was on us the entire time. "Who the hell is that?" I muttered under my breath. Riley didn't answer. She just stepped on the gas and drove past. My throat felt tight. The air in the car seemed heavier now. A few minutes later, she pulled over to the side of the road, staring out into the empty landscape. "We should have hit the town by now," she said, more to herself than to me. "This isn't a town," I replied quietly. I wasn't sure why I said it. It just felt true. We turned around, hoping to find a way out of the place, but that's when we saw her. A woman, walking right down the middle of the road, barefoot. Her dress was soaked, clinging to her body like she had just crawled out of a lake. Her hair was tangled, and her face was pale, so pale it was almost translucent. She didn't acknowledge us at all. Riley tapped the horn. Nothing. She didn't flinch, didn't even turn her head. But then she turned, just slightly, not toward us, but toward the empty fields that stretched out on either side. And then she smiled. It wasn't a smile of joy or warmth, just a small, creepy curl of her lips, like someone had whispered an old joke into her ear. Then she kept walking, past the Jeep into the dark. Neither of us said a word. Riley swung the Jeep around again, faster this time. The road back felt different, wider, darker. The houses started to look more strange. One had dozens of mirrors nailed to its siding, all at odd angles, reflecting nothing. Another had bird cages, dozens of them, all empty and swaying slightly in the breeze. The flags on the mailboxes were still raised, still waiting. And then the Jeep stalled. Everything died. The engine, the lights, the radio, all gone. Complete silence. I reached for my phone. No signal. Outside, the fields pressed closer to the road. I could have sworn I saw something moving in them, tall, too fast to describe. Then we heard it, a thud on the roof, and then another, a dragging sound, like something crawling across the top. Riley didn't scream. She didn't even blink. She just grabbed the wheel, her knuckles white. Without warning, the Jeep started again, on its own. She slammed her foot on the gas, and we were off, the gravel screaming beneath us as we tore down the road. We passed the Moorcroft sign again, but this time it was on the wrong side of the road, like we had just arrived. Riley whispered, "We're not leaving, are we?" I didn't answer. I couldn't. My heart was hammering, but my hands were freezing. Then, like flipping a switch, we saw the freeway, a blue overhead sign. Cars, movement, sound, everything felt real again. We didn't speak until we pulled into a chain motel an hour later, checked in, locked the door, and left every light on. We didn't talk about it, not once. Story 8. My name's Noah. A few months after I graduated from college, I was burnt out, completely drained from job interviews, the pressure of figuring out what came next, and the weight of not knowing what the future had in store for me. Honestly, I just wanted to avoid all of it. Maybe that's why I said yes to the road trip. I didn't have a plan. My younger brother Micah didn't have a plan, and neither did our friend Riley. It was just 3 people, a battered old Toyota Highlander, a cooler full of gas station snacks, and 2 sleeping bags that still smelled like mildew from their last use. Micah was the one who brought up the idea. He always had this strange obsession with weird places, abandoned mines, ghost towns, ruins that never seemed to have a good story attached to them, just eerie silence. He'd spend hours on conspiracy forums, browsing blurry photos of crumbling buildings and half-baked legends. I never really understood it, but Micah was stubborn when it came to his interests. One night he sent me a screenshot of an old map he found online. "Santa Gracia," he said. "Totally off-grid, no records past the 1950s. Some people say it was a mining town that burned down. Others say it never existed, but it's supposed to be haunted." I wasn't sold. I figured it would just be another pile of rubble in the desert, maybe a rusty sign if we were lucky. But Micah was obsessed. Even Riley, who usually rolled her eyes at his ghost hunting nonsense, said she was curious. So, against my better judgment, we decided to go. We reached Santa Gracia late on the 3rd day. The road had been gravel for miles. The sun had dipped behind the horizon hours ago, leaving only the sliver of the moon to light the way. We hadn't seen another car since lunch. By the time we got to the town, it didn't look anything like what I expected. It wasn't a town, it was a carcass, decaying and empty, like the life had been drained from it long ago. Buildings slumped against each other, their windows long gone. A rusted water tower stood crooked, leaning as if it had given up on trying to stand tall. No power lines, no fences, just space, just silence. That's what hit me first. The silence. There were no birds, no bugs, no wind. It was the kind of silence that feels unnatural, like sound is being pulled away before it can reach your ears. It made my skin crawl. Micah, however, was thrilled. He jumped out of the car with his Polaroid camera and started snapping photos like we had just stumbled upon some hidden treasure. Riley and I stayed by the car for a little longer. She leaned on the door, arms crossed, eyes scanning the ruins. "This place feels off," she said quietly. I nodded. I couldn't explain it, but something about the place made the hairs on my arms stand up. It wasn't just the physical decay, it was the absence of life, the weight of emptiness. It felt like we were trespassing on something that didn't want us here. Micah wandered further into what used to be the center of town. There was a dried-out fountain in the middle, pieces of cracked tile scattered around like broken teeth. Around it, The remains of what had once been shops and homes lay in fragments, nothing intact, just pieces of a past that had been swallowed by time. "Let's camp here," Micah called. "It's perfect." I didn't think it was perfect. I thought it was creepy. But I was too tired to argue, and frankly, I didn't want to walk any further into the ruins. So we set up near what looked like an old park. Decaying benches, a sandbox full of dirt and glass shards, and a half-collapsed gazebo. We boiled water for ramen, cracked open warm cans of beer, and tried to act like it was just another night under the stars. But even our laughter felt strange, like it didn't belong in this place, like the sound didn't resonate the way it should. Around midnight, Riley got up to pee and disappeared behind one of the old buildings. I remember checking my watch when she left. I was waiting for her to come back. But minutes passed and I started to feel uneasy. The stillness around me made it worse. I couldn't hear anything, not even the usual nighttime sounds. She finally came back, but something was wrong. Her skin was pale, her lips dry. Her eyes didn't quite focus when she looked at me. She didn't say anything at first. She just stood there for a moment, and I could see the exhaustion on her face. "You all right?" I asked. She paused, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, just tired." But she didn't say anything else. She just crawled into her tent and zipped it up. I lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. The air felt thick, like it was pressing down on me. My brain wouldn't stop spinning, and every time I tried to relax, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching. I kept listening, waiting for any sound, any sign that things were normal. At some point I must have drifted off because I woke up to a sound I couldn't place. Footsteps, soft, measured, crunching on gravel. I held my breath, trying to focus. The footsteps weren't circling us. They were pacing, coming closer, then farther, then closer again, like someone was walking a line they hadn't decided to cross yet. Then I heard a voice, a woman's voice, calm, almost sweet, but distant. "Come see." It was so quiet, so faint, I thought I imagined it, but then it came again, stretched out, like the words were a struggle for her to form. "Come see." I didn't move. I didn't speak. My flashlight was inches from my hand, but I didn't dare reach for it. Some part of me knew what I had to do. Don't shine light, don't speak, just wait. I don't know how long I stayed like that, but eventually the sky started to lighten. My muscles ached, but I didn't dare move. I sat up slowly, unzipped the tent as quietly as I could, and stepped outside. Micah was already awake, crouched by the car, staring at a stack of Polaroid photos. His face was pale, his expression unreadable. "I didn't take this one," he said, barely above a whisper. He handed it to me. It was from the night before. All three of us were in it. Riley mid-laugh, me raising a can, Micah looking off to the side. But in the background, between two crumbling buildings, was something else. A figure. Tall, unnaturally thin, arms too long. A face. No, a lack of a face, just a smooth black void where features should have been. I felt a chill sweep over me. My heart started pounding. I ran to Riley's tent. She wasn't there. Her sleeping bag was still zipped up. Her flashlight was gone, and so were her boots. No footprints. No drag marks, except for one strange print in the dirt. Long, misshapen, like someone had scraped the front of their foot along the ground while walking. We searched for hours. We screamed her name until our throats burned. But there was nothing, not even an echo. I checked every building, every ruin. Nothing. Micah kept saying we should wait. "She's probably just lost," he kept repeating, but I couldn't stay another minute. The air was thick, oppressive, and it felt like we weren't alone anymore. I dragged him to the car, and we drove until the gaslight blinked red. We didn't stop. We didn't speak. We just kept moving. The cops took our statement. Her parents were devastated. We tried to explain what happened, but what could we say? That she had walked into thin air, that something had been watching us from the shadows. Micah changed after that. He stopped returning texts. He started posting disturbing things online, drawings of tall, faceless figures, notes like, "She waits in silence and I hear her in the walls." It was like he was unraveling piece by piece. Then one night I got a message from him. "It's at my window." Same whisper, same voice. That was at 3 a.m. The next morning, I drove to his apartment. The door was locked from the inside. His wallet was still there. His keys sat on the counter. The lights were off. No signs of a struggle, but in the bathroom, taped to the mirror, was a Polaroid. The same figure. This time it was closer, sharper, its head tilted in an unnatural way. Beneath it, written in red marker, "She wants you to come see." That was months ago. I've moved twice since then. I don't talk to anyone from that time. I keep the lights on at night, and I never, ever sleep near a window.